Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Daily Leadership Brief. I am Jason Safford, the Resilience Architect. I'm delighted to be your host and grateful to be here with you today. Today, we are focused on reaction and the battle to win before you react. I'd like to begin with a little story about a coach who you may be familiar with named Phil Jackson. And I want you to imagine standing in Phil Jackson's shoes in game 6 of the NBA Finals. 20,000 people are screaming in the stands. Millions of people are watching around the world. Every possession could decide the game. Michael Jordan wants the ball. Dennis Rodman is emotional. Scottie Pippen is exhausted. The officials have just made a controversial call. Every player is looking towards one man, Phil Jackson. And here's what's remarkable about the situation. Phil is ready for it. While everyone else is becoming louder, he's becoming quieter. And they're breathing harder. The fans, everyone, their breath is getting accelerated. His breath is slowing down. And while that emotion is filling across the court, a decision has to be made. So I want you to think about reaction as the enemy today. And as always, our goal is one principle, one practice, and one measurable response. So our agenda is always about installing something through a story and finding a principle. Today, we're looking at reaction in terms of how we can stand, breathe, and become, recognizing the pressure and choosing your behavior. As always, I want you to set your intention for the day in one word. Okay, and the examples today are calm, intentional, patient, steady. These are things to think about, but every day the goal is to build a ritual that you're going to set your intention for the entire day in one word. So, thinking about reaction, I want you to imagine life in terms of circumstances in a day. And where are your circumstances leading you instead of your principles? Remember, yesterday we talked about attention. Today, we're understanding that circumstances are always grabbing our attention. So, in order to focus, in order to find attention, we have to pause. Now, again, getting back to Phil Jackson, that stillness, that ability to command presence under pressure when everybody's looking at him and to make a decision had everything to do with understanding that the reaction to the situation could change everything for his players and the outcome of the game. So Phil always looked at his response being the signal that everybody else would react to. And that's your goal as a leader. You have to sit in that pressure. You have to breathe before responding instead of reacting. Choose the response that you want to have. So the leadership lesson in this case is stillness creates the space where leadership can choose, because that is your frequency. Your frequency is the opportunity to choose the path you want to go forward. Let's look at reaction as an enemy, and how do we deconstruct reaction and turn it into something that we can control. Reaction is the unexamined moment, that controls the leader. So you're triggered by an event. It causes an emotion. That emotion creates an impulse. That impulse creates a consequence. That consequence creates a pattern. That's your enemy. That's what often happens when we don't pause and take notice of the trigger and our emotion. It often, we find out after the impulse what we just did. So response is the key that we're looking for to prevent reaction from taking control of us. Reaction is automatic. It's controlled by our nervous system. Response is intentional. We control our nervous system before it has a chance to act. And I want you to think of yourself as a leader, as that choice, the space before the automatic reaction happens. When you own that pause, you own the response, which is the choice in the direction not only you are going forward, but you're leading others because they gravitate based on your signal. The operating system to allow you to do this, we call the reaction reset. Again, you can find it in the book Win Your Day, the Blueprint for Human Reinvention. And again, that's online, winyourdaybook.com. Trigger. We have to identify what just happened. So being able to recognize the trigger and then allowing yourself to feel the state you're in. What state am I assuming? What state am I feeling right now? And from the trigger and the state, you're then allowed to look at how you want to respond. You have a choice. Based on how I'm feeling, how do I want to move forward? So the transformation of your body, the transformation of your action comes from that reset of the protocol. Your nervous system is taking an automatic action, which you pause. And by allowing your state and auditing your nervous system, you can now go in a different direction. And that's the transformation. The algorithm to help you do that is when that trigger occurs, what just happened, take one deliberate breath. Big, deep breath and hold it. In that hold, ask yourself, what am I feeling and assuming? As you exhale, align yourself. Return to your mission, your values, and the facts. This is where you have the chance to assess the situation in that deep breath. And you can take as many deep breaths as you need. But again, box breathing, box breathing is one very intentional way to do this. And after you take that breath and reset yourself, now you can choose the next intentional action. The reflection I want you to think about is what situation is most likely to trigger a reaction that does not reflect you as the leader you intend to be today. And the reason why I'm asking you that question is because throughout the day, you have opportunities to think ahead of situations that could trigger you. And the more you prepare for them is the more that when that trigger happens, you can actually take that breath and reset yourself. So if you can name a trigger that often happens in a day and identify your default reaction to that trigger, now you have an opportunity to choose the response that you want. Okay? We can use something as simple as an alarm clock. So we know the trigger to our alarm clock is that we hate it and we're just going to slam down on it. But if we identify that trigger and say, I want to be able to not slam on my alarm clock when it goes off, and instead be able to turn it off with comfort and get up. Now going forward, when it happens, you have an opportunity to recognize that and take a deep breath. Allow yourself to feel the state you're in, then assume a new position that you choose the action forward that you really wanted. Again, this creates the awareness that allows you to move forward and get past that trigger. Your daily challenge before noon today is using that example to interrupt one reaction. Use a deliberate pause where you take a deep breath and choose an intentional response that is different than how you would normally react to that situation. That will provide the evidence. Again, choose your one word for how you will lead today. Write it down, post it, share it with the world, reflect on it throughout the day. Today's reaction reset, the leadership installation, and the one-word practices are all in the Win Your Day book, which you can find at winyourdaybook.com. And if you are interested in supporting resilience more or building your resilience to build greater capacity, there is the opportunity for the Resilience Circle. This is where we focus on building greater capacity in leaders through resilience architecture. Tomorrow, we will be recapping the lessons for the week and focusing on how resilient leaders make intentional responses repeatable under pressure. So that is consistency. I want to thank everyone for today joining me with the Daily Leadership Brief. I wish you all success. Use your tools, use your word, go out there, understanding that leadership is a practice that you apply every day. Win your day.